Will Kowalczyk at 4-0.
Yeah, Will is our feature match this round. So we're going to watch him play the Greasefang deck in just a minute here at 4-0, which is, a pretty good start to one of these events. But Devin, it's important to remember that this tournament, we actually are one player over the normal amount of rounds. So we're going to be going up to 9 rounds today. So that's going to mean, normally Will's sitting pretty, got 1, maybe 2 more rounds to win. He's got to win another 3 to 4 before it's going to be over, as Will is on your right here on Abzan Greasefang, and Russell Lee, who we saw earlier in the day, is back here on Izzet Phoenix. Like we mentioned, Russell's someone who is used to competing at the highest level here. Looks like on a Moldifor, though, with Phoenix, and not surprised to see him here. Titans of the game battle it out.
Yeah, molding to 4, not the best when you're Phoenix deck. But, as we mentioned earlier, the Phoenix deck does have a ton of cantrips, so able to sculpt this hand. And, not a bad mold to 4. Shredder pieces, couple of lands, but...
yeah, that's a Spikefield Hazard. Very nice try there, Russell. It's like when the kids stack on each other on top of the coat and go into the club, No one's getting by there. And, a mold of 4, that was pretty good. A mold of 3, it's going to be a lot harder. Assuming it wasn't, a mulligan to 3 situation here for Russell. Who do you normally like in the Phoenix versus Greasefang matchup?
So I gotta think that you want to favor the Phoenix side of things. Like if you're just in the normal heads up, because the Phoenix deck has so many ways to prevent, so many answers to Greasefang in the form of Fiery Impulse X4, 4 Lightning Axis. So just tons of ways to be able to keep that off the battlefield. But obviously Russell in this position, mulligans, took a ton of mulligans, has to tap out on turn 2 for a Shredder, and there's a Parhelion of the Graveyard, Mason. If there's a Greasefang, we are done here.
Game! It's over! Pack him up, Russell. Life's short. There we go. Game number 1. We heard y'all don't like Izzet Phoenix, so we just, we put the rig in, got them on the mold of 4, on the draw, dies the Phoenix on turn 3. What more do you want from me, Twitch chat? I got to give you some Izzet Phoenix. It's just too good to avoid.
Mason, I think the reason that Russell did not win that game is because he didn't cast any cantrips, right? We've seen these Phoenix players. The more cantrips you cast, the better it is. Also, the more that you upset Mason. So, yeah, no cantrips equals no victory. Thoughts using your land probably doesn't help. But
yeah, it's a little rough there, but yeah, it's kind of a tough one. Well, let's go to our sideboarding here because, that was a lightning fast game number 1. And we're going to start with Will Kowalczyk here on Abzan Greasefang. We have 4 Leyline of the Void, 2 Duress, 2 Fatal Push, 2 Ravenfieldment, 2 Temporary Lockdown, 2 Unlicensors, and a Knight of Autumn. Devin, what do you like here?
Definitely want access to those Leyline of the Voids. We've seen Phoenix on camera a couple of times have maybe struggle against that type of card, like that really heavy graveyard hate. So Will's definitely going to want access to those. Past that, probably a couple of Hearses as well. Maybe that's overloading on graveyard hate, but I don't think it is. And maybe wants access to potential Fatal Push to be able to handle Thing in the Ice, and then Duress to be able to clear those removal spells.
Makes sense. And I actually, before we slip to the side here, want to point out I really like this idea of having some Shieldreds in the main deck and just having cards that are pretty good. We've seen players sideboard them for grindy games, but you kind of want those sort of cards in game number 1 to sort of, really stretch them when they have the least amount of answers. So I like this sort of innovation here. I've seen some other Greasefang players do it, but a great call, I think, from Will. Let's check out what Russell has once again in the Izzet Phoenix sideboard. We saw it earlier against the Sultai combo deck, but different matchup now. We have 2 Disdainful Stroke, 2 Thing in the Ice, 2 Mystical Dispute, 2 Brotherhood, and 2 Crackling Drake, 2 Saheeli Sublime Artificer, an Invasive Surgery, a Treasure Cruise, and an Abrade. What do you like out of the sideboard here?
So no direct graveyard heat here from Russell, but as we talked about, just the presence of all the removal spells, Fiery Impulses, and Lightning Axes, definitely wants to go for instant speed interaction for Greasefang, which, looking at Russell's sideboard, the only available option there is the 1 copy of Abrade. Past that, probably want to go for Thing in the Ice. There's some situations where maybe if you can tank 1 Greasefang hit, you have Thing in the Ice to flip and get all the creatures back. But yeah, I think those 2 are the main ones. As we see here, Will starting off with the
white line.
Yeah,
those players sideboarded quickly on it, back at it. And that is going to make it to where if Russell doesn't have a card like Crackling Drake brought in, it's going to be a bit more challenging than normal to win the game. Not impossible, but it's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah, one thing I want to point out as well, Fiery Impulse, normally a good removal spell against Greasefang, because if you have Spell Mastery, it deals 3 damage. Mason, that Leyline of the Void, going to cut off Spell Mastery, so that means that Russell's really only interaction for the Greasefang is going to be those 4 Lightning Axes and then the 1 Abrade, assuming...
Yeah, Russell might be a master, but can't be a Spell Master this game, as Will Fatal pushes the Ledger Shred and then plays for Fiend Informant for the Connive.
We'll see what we discard here for Will. Obviously, wants to discard a vehicle, preferably Parhelion, but would also settle for a Sky Sovereign or Anasika's Chariot. The fact that we're thinking about this long means we probably don't have a vehicle, as we discarding a Leyline. But honestly, when you have Leyline against Phoenix, you have so much time, because the way that you lose to Phoenix is where they cantrip, put a couple of Phoenixes into play on turn 2, and that can just race you. But if you're given this amount of time to sculpt your hand and eventually find those Parhelions plus Greasefang, you gotta favor Will on this spot.
Yeah, this is a nice place to be. Although, how sick would have been though if Will had just tanked and then discarded Parhelion? He was like, how much of my feature match time do I want to spend? Like, I could leave, but I could also get a little bit of camera actions. We do see the Fiend Form attack in for 3.
Will's just extending the game so we can have more time to talk about stuff on camera,
Exactly. Yeah. Content. Sell cards. But taking a moment here, and nothing on 3 mana for Will. Like we mentioned before, when you have Leyline of the Void, you get a lot of time. So it's possible Will just kept a hand that was like Rafine, the Leyline, and some lands and called it a day.
Yeah, maybe he has like a Shieldred or something in hand that is missing land number 4, also Chariot. So Will does have access to a lot of powerful 4-mana plays that doesn't have, maybe not necessarily has the 4th land quite yet. See Russell playing a cantrip. And like you mentioned, if Russell did not bring in either the Thing in the Ices or the Crackling Drake, it's going to be really hard to just close the game through that Leyline of the Void.
We do see Consider. And, we saw last turn Russell main phased an op. So probably was missing lands. Yeah, and has to pass the turn back. Looks like Will has an in-turn Grizzly Salvage.
Pick up a forest here. I believe that was a Chariot going to the graveyard. So if there is a Greasefang in hand, that's going to be a primary target for that particular card. So maybe we'll see something like land number 4, a follow-up a discard spell into Greasefang, and it might be good enough for Russell to pack it up here if that's what Will's got.
Yeah, we'll have to see how this plays out. It looks like we did have the Greasefang.
Oh, actually, funny enough, Mason, if Will did have a discard spell, we couldn't cast it first because we have Forest, Green Pathway, and then 2
that's funny. It looks like the Asika Shard is coming in, so Russell doesn't have a Lightning Axe, and that is going to generate some cat tokens for us. We're going to crew with the cat tokens and attack with the Asika Shard, targeting the cats, make some more cats.
Yeah, so I mean, at this point, Russell's really only hope out of here is Red Source into Brotherhood's End if that came in, which, typically it probably makes sense for it to come in because of spots like this, where even if there's no Greasefang, just Brotherhood's End is a good way to help clean up these cat tokens. So, even it would make sense for that to come in, but Russell needs a Red Source plus that.
Yeah, this is a spot too where, the Greasefang deck tries to leverage its threat of combo and then go wide and make it so you can never tap out. So Brotherhood's End is a nice one to have. Now, Thing in the Ice, if you have enough time, this could be, a mini Brotherhood's End and get us out of here. We're going to cast an Opt, see if we can chain. Looks like, Sleight of Hand, excuse me. Sorry, misspoke.
Yeah, see, I told you they look so simple.
They got me. It looks like the pirate one from afar. Y'all can't see it, but IRL, I'm making an eyeglass movement.
I can't confirm he is doing the little eyeglass thing.
I'm more like a character than I am like an adult. As Will untaps for the turn and has a large battlefield. So if we have another way to crew this Chariot, we might be in chump block mode.
Well, I think this might just be lethal, Mason, because the cats that ETB from the Chariot can just crew it that turn. So you crew the Chariot 1, 2.
Oh, it's another Chariot.
Block the Greasefang, and that's 2, 4, 6, 11. Count 15 damage. So
yeah, I missed the new Chariot. Yeah, and that is it. Congratulations to Will, moving on to 5-0. Only has to win a couple more to top 8 this event. And like we mentioned, Will is one of our players who is on the leaderboard. We'll see if that was so quick. Maybe we're going to interview. We definitely have a backup feature match for you. So there's going to be more Pioneer action happening this round for sure. But yeah, that's great stuff. And this is what Will needs, have good, solid weekend finishes. Obviously, a top 8 is great. Might almost even hard lock you for the Players' Championship with where Will's at. But, even if things go off the rail here, sort of locking up those top 32s, those top 64s are how you make it to the championship over a year of success, which we've seen from Will.
Yeah, every single point matters. That matchup, by the way, this took, I think, make a maximum of 10 minutes probably. So, like you said, hopefully we'll get maybe an interview with Will as we can.
All right, we're going to get to the backup.
Yeah, we're going to get to the backup matchup for you in just a second here.
So if you were watching last round, we have Derek Davis again. And Derek Davis said, what I like about my deck is it just crushes the Rakdos decks. And we see Chris Anderson here, very strong, accomplished player on Rakdos Sacrifice.
Yeah, now I don't know, Derek said the Rakdos decks. I don't know if he was necessarily referring to Sacrifice or mid-range, but I do think that the Enigmatic deck is really good against both Sacrifice and mid-range. I guess it's maybe you could say that Sacrifice is a little slightly better than mid-range against it because it does have the ability to put a fast clock on, especially, with Mayhem Devil maybe being copied by Fable the Mirror Breaker. But yeah, this is the exact type of deck that Derek wants to play against.
A little companion battle going on here too. Derek has the companion counter on top of the Yorion. Chris, Gigantha on top of the companion counter. I kind of like it under, but like a little bit more showing. That way it doesn't think it's on the battlefield, Yeah, a little ajar. As we do see Bloodtithe Harvester cast here.
Yeah, Derek with a turn 2 Destiny Spinner, not the 2-drop you're looking for, would much prefer to have like a Nylea's Presence or a Bitter Reunion to kind of cantrip through and find something, curve that into a Fable or a, Enigmatic Incarnation. See an Oath of Chandra taking out a Bloodtithe Harvester. That one is, a good one to sacrifice to an Enigmatic because you get your money out the door, right? You get the creature when it enters the battlefield, then you just, float that into a 3-drop. As far as 3-drops are concerned, if there is an Enigmatic, the one that we are looking for the most here, let me take a look at Derek's deck list. We're looking at things like Knight of Autumn, if Chris deploys a Fable this turn, which he does. So that's probably the one that Derek's going to be looking for the most.
As we do see, Chris is trying his best. Like Derek said, this is why he plays this deck so much. Has, a good matchup here. And Fable coming down, this is one of Chris Anderson's strongest cards on rate on its own. Can, maybe get us out of here. One of the cool things with this deck is you can do things like discard Cauldron Familiar, as the Destiny Weaver does attack for 2, being a 2/3. But you can discard that Cauldron Familiar and then get it back later, as we do see Portable Hole taking down the Goblin Shaman.
Also, Mason, just wanted to point out, very, very big fan of Chris's choice of basic swamps here. I believe those are betas, maybe alphas, but absolutely love those. They look gorgeous.
Yes. Nice. Also, the Sulfur Spring is looking pretty good with the originals there. Pristine condition. Yep.
I don't know if you knew this, but Sulphurous Springs is the actual OG hot tub stream.
Yeah, it's the OG. Yeah. I like that it's still running when we went back to Dominaria.
True.
It's a little skeleton of the, soaked too long.
Is that like the jokes where they you call somebody and you ask them if their fridge is running?
Exactly. Yeah. What if we got a Universes Beyond, but it's Hot Tub Time Machine, and it's just Sulphur Springs with different characters from that the spring. As we just feel the Mirror Breaker come down.
I'm in, I'm in, Mason.
Yeah, I'm glad. Content. Exactly. That one's on the House Wizards. Yeah. I know you have my number.
Good. Notably, Derek did play a tapped 4th land last turn, so definitely could have the Enigmatic rolled up, just didn't have an untapped 4th land. And I mean, Chris Anderson has 2 Fable the Mirror Breakers, but if Derek deploys an Enigmatic here and, I want to do a check for Deputy of Detention, Mason, there is 1 copy in Derek's deck, so we're going to deploy an Elesh North.
Yeah, the Mother Machines has hit the battlefield, and this is going to make it where cats are not going to trigger the Drain Life, which, is small, but every point matters here for Chris Anderson. And all of our things are going to double, which is much more important.
Right. Now, if you follow that up with something like a Leyline Binding, you can actually get both Fables now. Similar with Deputy of Detention, you could get both Fables and the 2/2 token. There's just a lot of stuff that Derek has access to.
As we see Chris here, discarding, looks like a Bloodtithe Harvester and a Unlucky Witness. I was an unlucky witness of this happening to poor Chris Anderson.
I thought you were going to go with unlucky witness of watching Phoenix play 11 cantrips in a game, but
no, that one's for later today.
Okay.
As we do have 5 more rounds of Magic for you, plus 1 more. So a lot going on. It's like 6 is one way to describe it, but I described it in a very weird way. As we do see the Blackcliff Cliffs and the battlefield tapped.
And we have a Claim the Firstborn on Destiny Spinner. Ooh, Chris could maybe If we had a treasure token, we could activate that. There's 3 enchantments on the battlefield. Fire up a land to a 3/3, but unfortunately, no no treasure tokens.
Very funny moment here for Derek Davis. He could block with his Elishnorn, but if he does, then it always dies. But if his opponent doesn't have a thing to do with it, then it doesn't matter. But also, maybe just block and they Deadly Dispute anyways. So it is a Deadly Dispute that's happened here. I'm unsure if Derek took the 2 or not.
Yeah, you kind of have to assume if your opponent is casting the Claim the Firstborn, they likely have something to do with it. But maybe it's also a desperation play from Chris where he says, you know what, my hand stinks. I have to just cast this claim and really hope that Derek, doesn't play around me having a sack outlet and blocks anyways. But yeah, we do have the Deadly Dispute for Chris.
Alrighty then, as we see.
Another portable hole, likely going to take out that Shaman token. Actually going
And
after
a
the blood token.
Well, you get 2.
Oh, right, because you get 2 from the Elishnorn. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yes.
Yeah.
She is the mother of machines. A portable hole is a machine?
Mother of machines. I don't know. Yeah, we'll go with that. But yeah, Mason, we really see why Derek said earlier that the only deck he wants to play against is Rakdos, because this has just been kind of a really one-sided affair. And to be completely honest with you, I don't really know how Chris gets out of this. Like, Derek didn't even have the Haymaker in the form of Enigmatic Incarnation. I mean, I guess the one thing that you're looking for is Chris's Mayhem Devil, because you can go say, maybe play a Mayhem Devil, copy it with Fable, and then you have the treasure token in play. That's 2 triggers. The devil copy sacrifices itself end of turn. That's 2 more. But I mean, Elishnorn's got 7 toughness, and that's only 4 damage.
I mean, all right, I figured out the line. So Chris needs to draw a bunch of lands in a row, like 1 or 2 more, and have the devil in hand, like you mentioned. Then Derek needs to have all lands. We copy Fable with the 4, 5, 6 times we'll be able to do it. Then we play Mayhem Devil and we copy it 3 times. Then the triggers all go on the stack all at the same time. That's about 40 damage.
Yeah. Okay.
So we do have an out as long as, Derek is flooding incredibly hard, and he picked up Yorion. So there is something to be said now. Yorion can flicker the Oath of Chandra, which will then kill the Fables, which make this all impossible. But, we kind of got all the pieces here going so far.
Yeah, here's the devil. And so, obviously we did talk about, how Chris could just say, go to, well, actually, it's funny, the timing, how Oath of Chandra works, where let's say Chris didn't play the Mayhem Devil this turn, he could actually go to end phase, right? So Derek plays the Yorion, assuming there's nothing else, flickers the Oath of Chandra. Oath of Chandra comes back in the end phase, targets the 2 Fables. Chris could say, okay, I'll just make 5 copies. Then the 2 originals die, but then Chris still untaps with the other 5 copies. And then you could say untap, play devil, copy devil twice, and then maybe go from there. So yeah, that maybe could have been an out.
Yeah. And this is the sort of things you have to be looking for. And, obviously there's a lot going right there to have it work. And, killing this Elspeth Mother Machines, Elishnorn Mother Machines is very good.
So we went copy reflection,
devil.
copy devil. Okay, and then they all died, and then we were able to kill the Elishnorn. Okay, so that's definitely a good start for Chris. And now, if Derek does not have an answer, I guess the thing is we know about the Yorion, so that at the very least can blink the Oath and kill the devil. But then you still have 2 Fables.
Yeah, you also maybe just have to kill the Fable. I guess if you kill the Fable, though, if you kill a Fable, then you can't do the crazy stuff with all the devils. You just get to get a few devils. Oh, Chain to the Rocks. Yeah, and now you can flicker that Chain to the Rocks too, and it will reset the Fable of the Mirror Breaker. You're going to kill one with the portable hole token. Then the other one's going to go to the chain, and then you're going to Chandra down the devil, and now everything is taken care of.
So I guess the only downside of this is you leave Chris with a Fable in play, but that's, obviously better than Chris having 2 Fables and a devil. So this does make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to give Chris that redraw and another Fable in 2 turns, but the token is answered due to the portable holes coming back in. Players are just shortcutting it. No reason to waste anyone's time putting it in. Looks like Chris is taking a peek skipoo, trying to figure out exactly how we're going to fight through this. We had another Mayhem Devil in hand, so if Derek had only had an answer to Mayhem Devil, we might have actually just won the game, but Chris is doing his best to fight through this here, and that ability to use those fables with Mayhem Devil was a good start. And here comes the oven, and we do have a Cauldron Familiar from forever ago in the graveyard.
Yeah, and worth noting, you mentioned earlier that Elishnorn's shutting off the Cauldron, but now that Elishnorn is gone, that Cauldron is, free to start going to work here with that cat in the graveyard. So,
Mhm.
with Chris at 4, does have to gain at bare minimum 1 life this turn to make the Yorion not a lethal attacker. So, likely is going to sacrifice the Goblin token to make a food, sacrifice the food, bring back cat, go to 5, take 4, go to 1, and then, maybe try to stabilize from there.
Yeah, and Cat Oven is very good at stabilizing. So we'll have to see exactly how Chris is going to want to play this. But lots of ways to just incidentally gain life. Even Fable copy the cat. You sack that cat for a food. You then eat the food. That's a token copy. Gain 3 life.
And worth noting here, the cat is in play, the oven is tapped. So if Derek does have access to a chain, a binding, or another portable hole, then you can remove that cat from the battlefield, and Chris does not have a window to sacrifice it.
Yeah, and we're gonna see 3 mana, 4 mana here for Derek.
Ooh,
Ignamin.
that is an enigmatic. So now we can go sack Oath, get a 3. You could get the Deputy and clean up both Fables, but that could be a little awkward if Chris does have a removal spell. Maybe the quote-unquote safer line is just Night of Autumn, get rid of the Witch's Oven. Let's see what
Yeah,
Derek wants
Night
to
of
go
Autumn
to.
is really tempting here. I'm really curious to see how Derek wants to play this. Like we mentioned, has a Pro Tour top 8 playing this deck, has him playing it a bunch. Sort of very and the Thrillback.
I forgot about
Yeah.
that one, yeah.
So what mode are we going to use here?
So I believe this one you can do. Let me just pull it up here. It's been a while since I've seen this card. So you get to choose any of the following modes. We have to pay green for each one. Naturalize, exile target player's graveyard, or gain 4 life. So with 2 green available, my guess is probably blow up the oven.
Looks like we blew up the Fable. And you might not be able to choose the same mode twice. It does look like Derek gained 4 life, and we have a Fatal Push on the Thrillback.
Yeah, the wording on this one's weird. It says you may pay green up to 3 times. When you pay this cost 1 or more times, choose up to that many. So I believe you're correct. I don't think you can choose the same mode twice.
The Wizard Factory. Sometimes you gotta have weird words to make cards work. But what?
This Mayhem Devil.
This Devil is good. Obviously, you need to be sacrificing some stuff.
Oh, very heads up play from Chris here. Claim the first board on Reflection to give it haste, which makes a copy of Mayhem Devil, and we are getting in there. Now we should be able to take out the
because we can sacrifice the cat to the oven. That triggers the devils. And then you can sack the cat, which triggers the devils. And then when the devil dies, it triggers again. Yeah, and now Derek Davis, kind of in a bit of a hard spot here. Fable the Mirrorbreaker showing just how powerful the synergies in this deck can be when they come together, and that card on its own already a powerhouse.
Yeah, this has been a really crazy turnaround. Now, Derek is able to find a removal spell, so that's going to kill the devil, and it's also going to champion to trigger that enigmatic incarnation. So now we can go ahead and maybe get another 3-drop. My guess is you likely have to deal with this Fable here, so maybe a Deputy or a Night of Autumn wants to go towards one of those, and yep, they receive the Knight on the Fable.
Yep. Yeah, leaving Chris with the cat oven because, Chris, while this is going to help him gain a little bit of life and help stabilize, it is much less important than the Fable, which, as we've seen here, every time it kind of gets to go off, is completely overwhelming the opponent for a half second.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. We when we came into this match, we definitely talked about how Derek was a relatively big favorite, but here, Chris has done a very, very good job at just grinding through all of these removal spells, setting himself up for spots where Flip Fable, Mayhem Devil, getting a lot of advantage, and this has been a really good.
Yeah, this has been a great one. And we also are seeing, just kind of like the difference between this deck and Rakdos mid-range trying to use pound for pound stronger cards, right? Those cards aren't going to really come together in a way that can overwhelm Derek. This deck might have more fragile pieces that you can break up a little bit easier, but if they ever assemble, they do a much stronger thing than mid-range can ever hope to do.
Right, exactly. Now, Derek, with that enigmatic incarnation face up, any enchantment drawn is going to represent a ton of value, whatever ETB it has, plus sacrificing it to get another thing. Glasspool Mimic, that's one of the few things that's not an enchantment because it can only copy creatures. So you can copy Knight of Autumn and I guess blow up one of the ovens most likely.
The oven is going to, especially the second one, actually really changes the dynamic. We're going to see Chris probably sacrifice the food, bring it back, use it before he loses it.
Is it true, Mason, that if you don't use it, you
100%, because you don't get the activation of the oven. It'll be gone. Yeah.
True. That is a good point. I'm glad we're on the same page.
You see Derek here has only got one card in hand, and he's ready to go into the red zone.
Beatdowns.
Very interesting spot here.
So, yeah, Chris hit 3 with the Blood Tithe Harvester. It's a weird spot because you kind of want to trade, but yeah, I mean, I guess you're probably going to sacrifice the Harvester anyways. Okay, we're going to go get back the cat and then trade the cat for it, which is awkward because it leaves you without a food in play.
I was going to say, if Derek has an answer for this Blood Tithe Harvester, then you are maybe without the cat.
You have to see what Derek's leftovers are.
He's got 2 mana. He's tanking a lot on it, too.
I'm trying to think of what 2-mana spell he wouldn't just want to slam here.
Yeah, that's my big thought, too. Is like, clearly we had a plan.
Okay, beside you. But yeah, this is massive. That's going to clear the oven, and yeah, now we have no way to get back that cat if you are Chris Anderson. But notably Derek at 12. If Chris maybe can find a removal spell, can clear that Glasspool Mimic, Blood Tithe Harvester, 4-turn clock. Again, at the mercy of Derek top decking any enchantment to really just close the game out with that enigmatic incarnation. But yeah, we've we found ourselves in a very a top deck war essentially.
Yeah, and Chris still has Dragantha in the companion zone. So if this turn we fade, we can just maybe redraw the blood if we had a land, hit another one, just pick up Dragantha.
Looks like picked up a cat, discarding that. Tapping 3. There's Gigantha. And again, we'll see if Derek can find any enchantment here. Any enchantment off the top is really, really big for Derek. We're picking up a lot of mana. Ooh, that's a lot of mana. It's not an enchantment, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah. Supposed to be our friend of what's coming down, the wolf fighting the Blood Tithe Harvester, and now attacking for 2. That is a Knight of Autumn underneath that Glasspool Mimic as it's copying it.
Gigantha does stabilize. 5/5. Well, not really, because Chris is at 2, right? You have 2 lethal attackers, yeah. So Gigantha by itself does not stabilize.
Yeah, and Chris Anderson, despite his best efforts, I think has fallen just a little bit too far behind here. Doesn't really have anything, and Derek Davis knows there's not much that Chris can really have to really stop this attack, so he's probably going to move straight to attacks and just
play a presence first, try and find a removal spell pre-combat, and that is going to do it. Derek Davis taking a very, very long game 1 number here.
Yeah, and really impressive from Chris, right? Like right before that all started, we were kind of talking like, okay, how do we win? What goes on, right? And it was all there, but he needed to have it immediately, and there were a lot of different ways to play that turn. So Chris did a really good job navigating and staying in that game when I think he was like sub 1% to win when we sort of started talking about like, how is he going to win?
Yeah, there was that sequence where he set up 2 Fable the Mirror Breakers with the Mayhem Devil to take down the Elishnorn, and then, a turn later was able to take down the Orion with another Mayhem Devil plus Fable turn. So was, very, very valiantly fought, but in the end, Derek was able to take down.
Well, let's check out Chris Anderson's sideboard real quick, because this is a time-shifted match, so there's going to be plenty of time to cover this. But we have 2 Kolaghan's Command, 2 Duress, 2 Rending Volley, 2 Damping Sphere, 2 Goblink, 2 Furnace Rains, the Gigantha Companion, Unlicensed Hearse, and a Kroxa Titan of Death's Hunger. What do you like here in the sideboard for Chris?
I've played a lot of Rakdos Sacrifice. I've played this matchup a few times. Definitely want the Duresses, so those are good at taking enigmatic incarnations and things like that. I'm kind of on the fence on Go Blank. It can be good sometimes. It can be bad sometimes. Furnace Rains is another card that is iffy, because if they go for Atraxa, Furnace Rains is nuts. Like if they go Binding, Sack Binding, get Atraxa off of enigmatic, then you just Furnace Rains it and GG. But if they don't go for Atraxa, if they're playing around Furnace Rains, it can be a little awkward sometimes.
Yeah, 100%. Let's check out the Ignamic Fires deck once again for Derek Davis and see sort of how he might want to be bringing this up. We have 4 Rending Volley, 3 Mystical Dispute, 2 Rest in Peace, 2 Temporary Lockdown, an Alpine Moon, a Yoragon, which is your companion, Archon of Myria, and Hanged Executioner. What are you looking for here?
Well, Derek has a really good matchup game 1, and it does not get any easier for Chris in the post-board games. We got 2 Rest in Peace and 2 Temporary Lockdown. Those are just slam dunks. Rest in Peace shutting off the cat engine, Lockdown being able to, because the Recto Sacrifice deck is very good at generating permanents on the battlefield, and Lockdown is very good at dealing with those cheap permanents on the battlefield. So definitely want those 4. Past that, probably not a ton else, but to be honest, Derek doesn't need much else.
That's fair. As it looks like these players are just about done sideboarding. This is a time-shifted match. We can probably skip ahead, maybe? I don't know. Maybe it's going to fast forward exactly. Sure how the time magic works there. I'm not a time wizard. I don't know if you are.
You're not a time wizard?
I'm more of a baby dragon. What would you call yourself?
Dark Magician for sure.
Interesting.
Anyways, that's not the game we're playing today.
Oh, I thought we were just coming up with magical words. I thought we were using our make-believe names.
Oh, I see.
Little Avengers reference? Ever heard of Marvel?
What is Marvel?
I think it's a cereal.
The only time that I've ever seen Marvel is like these meme websites, and so
wait, have you not seen it? Hang on, real talk. Have you seen a Marvel movie? It's okay if you haven't. Okay, just not a fan. Just not for you.
No, I just I don't follow them religiously,
I respect it.
But I do like the
what was the favorite one you saw? Well, they're mulliganing here. We got 2 seconds.
Tough one to pick. I'll have to come back to that one later.
All right, and Chris Anderson mulligans down to 6. Did not like the hand. You need a very specific hand. This comes up a lot in Magic, Devin, where, if you are in these bad matchups, sometimes players get a little greedy and they go, oh, I need to just keep 7 cards. The matchup's bad. But so often, actually, mulliganing down to 4 or 5 cards, if they're the right cards, gives you your best chance to win because you need those strong cards to actually win the game.
Right. You can't just keep a hand that's I'm trying to think of a good example here where it's like Unlucky Witness, maybe a Deadly Dispute, maybe like a Claim the Firstborn. I guess those probably didn't stay in, but you know what I mean? It's like you're looking for very specific cards, maybe like Duress, the Thoughtseize to kind of break up Derek's plan. Really wants like a Fable or a Mayhem Devil because, like we said, you can't really give this enigmatic deck a lot of time.
Yeah, notably, cards like Portable Hole are kind of walking in to a lot of Derek's Portable Holes are going to answer a lot of your stuff. So, Chris, you might not want to walk into them with things like an early Witch's Oven as your only thing, where normally that might be a play where you're pretty happy to do. As we do see a thought.
I don't know if you noticed this, Mason, but if you look at the companion placement, Derek switched it up.
Derek did. Wow, he net decked Chris. That's innovation.
Yeah.
Spars headquarters, pass the turn.
Oh, I'm glad you got that one.
Blood Tithe Harvester, pass the turn.
all alt arts. I feel like these players are just trying to get us, They're just playing as many alt arts as possible.
We do see Nylea's presence come down, draw a card. Derek, domained.
True. Yeah, that is a good point. Nylea's presence. Blood Tithe coming in for 3. See if Chris has a Fable to follow it up. That's probably the ideal turn 3 play. We are starting with a Thoughtseize.
All right. Leyline Bind, Elish Norn, Firesman Invention, Cavalier of Dawn, Bitter Reunion, and Thrilled Back, I believe is how you say that card's name.
It's a lot of those one-ofs. If you're in Chris's spot, this is kind of a weird hand to Thoughtseize. Like you want to take the Elish Norn. The binding is kind of tough, but the binding is maybe less of an issue when there's no enigmatic incarnation. These random one-ofs are can be somewhat problematic. We're going to see Chris take a little bit of a read ski on the Cavalier of Dawn. My inclination is maybe Elish Norn because it's the hardest card for you to deal with, but maybe you also just take binding to keep your oven.
Interesting. There's so many choices. I can see it going so many different ways because you could take the Fires to stop some double spell shenanigans. Take Binding because, obviously, Ignamic later in the game is going to turn this huge problem. Elish Norn turns stuff for now. Bitter Reunion even makes sense. You only have 3 lands here. Maybe these cards are beatable, even though it's going to be hard. But especially if your opponent skips on a couple land drops for a couple turns. But yeah, so many different choices here. And this is kind of what Derek was saying, right? The matchup's so good, right?
Yeah, you just don't have bad cards. Derek drew a lot of his one-ofs where a lot of what this deck is doing is just making a lot of situational one-ofs that you want to tutor for with Enigmatic. But it turns out that every single one-of is just the stone cold nuts in this matchup. So you can't really ever break,
And we do cast Bitter Union, discarding the Frilled Thrillback, which is, a card we talked about having text in this matchup, right? Like just blows up the Witch's Oven, blows up the Fable. Don't need it. Who cares? Hand's too good.
Yeah, and then said, if Derek does pick up a land and a copy of Enigmatic Incarnation, we're just going to see fires into Enigmatic. Could sack a 2 to get a 5. Could also sack the fires, sack the fires to get a 5, or sack a 2 to get a 3. But yeah, just all of the options available.
Yeah, Chris here thinking about what he wants to play. It looks like he's sacrificing one, and
the Croaks
makes sense.
Food.
You have to trigger the sack. Thought it was a Blood Tithe Harvester. And here's temporary lockdown. Nice food. Everything goes away. And if you're Derek, oh no, my cards went to the grave. Under my temporary lockdown too. It's so bad. But those cards are all cards that draw and rummage. So, if the game goes long and Chris represents them, you can flicker this with Yorion, and you're going to draw a couple of cards and kill his cards. It's just so backbreaking in this matchup. Fire Invention, Elish Norn.
Follow that up with Fires into Elish. Yeah, I mean, we can see why Derek definitely really, really likes this matchup. Also, for those, this is kind of a weird interaction, but surprisingly enough, Fable does not, there's no trigger. And the way that it's worded, basically Fable gets through Elish Norn. I don't know why that works, but it works.
As it enters, like sagas enter the battlefield with it, it's not an enter the battlefield ability, if that makes sense. Like, it's just sort of a game level thing. Is how that's how.
I'll take your word for it. No, you wouldn't lie to me, right?
Twitch chat. There's a difference. Look at Derek. Though. Wow. Derek's like, what if I drew a couple cards? Because this Elish Norn doubles the ETBs too. So we're gonna draw 2, discard 1, draw 2, discard 1, draw 2, and we get to play it for free with Fires Invention.
Yeah, Derek also deployed an Enigmatic Incarnation. This game is. This one is probably.
Yeah, Derek also can flicker the fires to play more spells this turn. I'm unsure if he did or didn't. I assume he would.
Yeah, I think we just went to. Yeah, looks like he was motioning. Well, no, because are we back in the end phase? No, because we just
so I think what Chris is doing is Chris knows it's coming back. So instead of laying all the things out and organizing them, he's just putting them all in the corner just because everyone knows it's going to be that way. Let's just shortcut it, make it easier on both of us.
It's kind of funny. The double Yorion trigger could be relevant here because you can respond to the second Yorion trigger and deploy a binding. I guess that doesn't change that much because you're binding that and then you blink the binding. Yeah, it doesn't change that much.
It could be something that comes up. But now we have the Bitter Reunion happening, and it looks like we're actually triggering we're using the Bitter Reunion for the Ignamic before the temporary lockdown comes back in off the Yorion trigger, which means we Night of Autumn down the Fable. Yeah, you see Chris kind of nod his head like, yeah, no, of course. No, that was going to happen. That was expected.
Yeah, Chris has had enough. He's tapping out. And we're done.
Congratulations to Derek Davis moving on to 5-0 in that time-shifted match. And it really shows. If you're someone at home and you're got your local store where you hate the Rakdos deck, or you just don't like Misplaced Ginger, all those things are happening, then that's the deck to play, is that Fire deck.
Absolutely. I don't know about the Misplaced Ginger slander, but yeah, that was an absolute masterclass of Derek Davis just destroying the Rakdos deck, and we definitely see why he wants to play against as many of those as possible. That.
And speaking of wanting to play, let's talk about our upcoming event in Madison, November 26th and 27th of next month. That's going to be right after the American Thanksgiving holiday. 25th, 26th, Modern 10K Showdown. You win that, you're going to go to our end of the year Players Championship. That's your last chance to qualify if you're at large on the leaderboard, or the one-shotter. That's both going on there. Modern 5K trial on Sunday as well. Remember, this is post Lost Caverns of Ixalan, so there'll be new cards for you to pick up. We have vendors on site. You can get the cards from us there. Pretty exciting stuff. We also have another thing that happens if you win the Showdown. We haven't talked much about today, is you get your own Inkling custom token. So all of our Showdown winners so far this year have won an Inkling token. This was from last year where Connor Mullally, our player of the year, won with his friends Max and Theo and got a Goblin Shaman token all together. So we use that one all the time here on coverage to show them off. But we also, we have ones from other players. Like Steven Dykeman has a sort of Rhino that's also a pilot token to celebrate his back-to-back win in one weekend. So a lot of really cool things going on there. And there's more things always going on the NRG series. So keep an eye out for that. We have the Reese going on at the event as well. I know some of our big players, they are dead in 9 rounds today. They're outplaying the Reese because these NRG events are so much fun and such great competition. 4 RCQs per weekend, because both our main events are RCQs. Then we have a ReCQ, which is just an RCQ that starts in the middle of the day with a fancy name. And so that's a bunch of things going out there. 9 invites, so much cash prizes. If you enjoyed the NRG series from home, we love having you there. But maybe you want to come out and play. We're going to be having more events next year, which we'll talk about later on at our Madison event. So that's going to do it for this round. We're going to have a little bit of a change up here. So what's going to happen is I'm going to leave you for an hour. We're going to trust you with Devin and Will Hall. Then Devin's going to leave, and I'm going to jump back in with Will for the rest of the day. And it was so much fun working with you, Devin. I can't wait to hang out with you again in the future and have fun on your Pioneer adventures.
Absolutely. Well, take care. I will see you when I see you, and have a great rest of your day.
I'll troll you in Twitch chat later. Have a good one. See you.